laps. Away we go from the start of this final feature race in the Porsche Esports Supercup. Brilliant launch.
40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. The checkered flag is out for Sebastian Joe. Takes a double victory at home in the UK. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup.
Silverstone has the record of hosting the first ever World Championship race for Formula One back in 1950. It is the track that is the epitome of British motorsport, and well, today it plays host to the next edition of the Porsche Sprint Challenge, live from the new Silverstone, set between Northamptonshire and Leicestershire in England. Qualifying is just about to get itself underway, so we're going to keep the introduction short here, but the championship, as ever, is close. The racing is going to be close and exciting, and if you've never seen the new Silverstone in iRacing before, then, well, you're in for a treat. If you've seen the new Silverstone across motor racing, you know that the fastest part of the circuit is the last part of the circuit, and that will mean the run from Copse through Maggot, Beckett's, Chapel, Stowe and Club will conclude the lap. And we've seen fireworks already in the last lap of this series, so we're almost certainly going to see it here again. With that, let's hand it over to your commentators, Paul Smith and Conor Maddock. Paul, take it away.
Well, I suppose I shall do the intro then and say hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge here from Silverstone. I'm certainly looking forward to this particular event. The Sprint Challenge races have been absolutely brilliant. They've been sensational. You can see the graphic there, how we have raced at various tracks throughout Europe, with Zandvoort, Catalonia, Donington Park, the Circuit de la Sarthe and the Nordschleife. But here at Silverstone, this is going to be a different challenge as well for us here. I'm certainly looking forward to this one, Connery.
Yeah, I am as well. We're solidly, well, towards almost exactly the midpoint of the season at the moment here. And we'll get this round at Silverstone underway in just a couple of moments' time. But, of course, we've got another championship graphic going to be coming up for you right now. So this is how the points standings are for the moment, as Peter Berryman top of the pile on that one. But Paul, this is such an important championship, not only to place well at the end of the season, but it's your placement in these individual races as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we have the big prize giving races here on a Saturday before the Porsche Esports Supercup, or the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, sorry, give it its correct title. And yeah, these drivers, they're fighting their way in these races. They've got multiple races to get them qualified for the event, for this particular race. We have got 30 drivers here, and they're all fighting it out for championship points and also for a share of a pot of prize as well, Connery. It's certainly a bit of an extra incentive, and we've seen what that incentive has done to races, I think, back to the Circuit de la Sarthe with the finish there, where they had that schmozzle at the last chicane. So definitely people want to win in this race, and they want to do well.
Yeah, of course, coming into this, Thomas Gibson is actually top of the pile, but only a couple of points over the driver of Kim Eriksson. But Kim Eriksson has had more race winnings over the course of the season than Gibson has been able to manage. So it's $1,100 going the way of Kim Eriksson. Up until now, Thomas Gibson has pocketed $900 so far. And I look down, further down, you see Cooper Webster actually in 5th place. He's already pocketed $1,000 for a race win earlier on in the season. So still very much some top prizes on offer here. And like I said, not just for the end of the season standings, but where you place in each and every race. It just makes racing, for positions inside the top 5 more exciting. Because yes, we want to see battling for the race win, and we've got that more often than not, especially with the race at Le Mans. But anything inside the top 5 is super important.
Absolutely. I mean, you just have to look back to the last round at the Nordschleife. That was a sensational race. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. That was great stuff to watch, and to actually sort of be involved in the broadcast of that one. It was great stuff. And we've seen how close these cars can run. We've also seen how over these rounds, drivers have realised that things like the draft, the slipstream, it isn't as strong as, say, some other cars, because these cars are not as aerodynamically reliant on the rear wing, on the front air dam. So that means that the cars are a little bit more aerodynamically efficient, which means that they're not giving off that slipstream quite as far as you will in the 911 GT3 Cup car that you'll be seeing later on. So this GT4 car, the 718 Cayman, it certainly does give us some really close action. It means that the times are pretty close, as well as the drivers are currently participating in qualifying.
Yep, they are. So we'll get to see how the grid sorts itself out relatively soon. We've got a couple of minutes left in that particular session. 2 flying laps that these drivers are able to complete. But of course, the second of those 2 is usually going to be the faster of the 2 because of those tires coming up to temperature. But we can take a look at exactly where we are in the world. We can head on over to the UK. We zoom right into the United Kingdom for a track that is basically the crown jewel of British motorsport.
Absolutely, it's the home of motorsport in the UK. Silverstone, it crosses the border. You can see the border running right down the middle of the track there, of Leicestershire and Northamptonshire. The new Silverstone wing, you can see there, that's where the start and finish line is now. After they rebuilt this, you then head on through Abbey Farm into Village, that tight right-hander, the left-hander at the loop, and then heading down the Wellington Strait down into Brooklands and Luffield, the long sweeping right-hander. Woodcote, the old final corner, and then Copse Corner, the old first corner here at the circuit, before you then head on through Maggots, Beckett's, really tricky part of the track, heading down the Hanger Straight into Stowe before you go through to Club for the end of the lap. And it is a brilliant track, and they've done a fantastic job of making this circuit to really work with these modern day cars and aerodynamics, and giving them overtaking opportunities. You're going to see a lot of moves made into Village. There might be people try a little cheeky move into the loop as well. Down into Brooklands, that's another favourite overtaking spot, and into Vale and Club is also some prime overtaking opportunities around the circuit.
Yeah, especially through that first sector where it's so wide and inviting on the entry to some of those corners. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of drivers decide to go for dives through the first sector in this one. Of course, if you're waiting for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, that'll be coming up after this, which is the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge. It's our little sort of support series to the iRacing World Championship there. So we'll get going for this one. The grid will be set in around about a minute and a half's time here, but overall, Paul, expectations for this race, because I'm looking at provisional qualifying at the moment, and I'm not seeing any Thomas Gibson, or at least inside the top 10 positions, because he's stuck down in P18, so not exactly a great qualifying for Gibson there down that far, and I would have expected to be a little bit further up considering the caliber of driver that he is.
I mean, you can look at the timing tower there, look at how close the times are. I could tell you that the grid, the top half of the grid, sorry, my timing screen has just gone a little bit funny on my end. There we go, that's a bit better. I could tell you that there's 7/10 of a second covering 1st to 25th. And it's only then at that point, the last 5 cars on the grid are over a second off of the pace. So there is, this is going to be a race where you get little groups of cars together. It'll be one long queue to start with, and then the drivers will just separate off into little battle packs throughout the field. So that's what you generally see around here when it's close pack action like this. But we could see a really close race all the way through. 20-minute race as well. So it's going to be action-packed from start to finish.
A close finish at Le Mans, a close finish at the Nürburgring last time out, but will we see a close finish here at Silverstone? That still remains to be seen in this one, as we'll click on over into the race session, and we have the starting grid for you for this round of the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge. Mikael Gard on pole position with a 2-minute 10.8. Cooper Webster not too far behind, inside a tenth of a second there on that front row. Simone Maria Marciano in 3rd place on the starting grid. Moreno Sorica in that 4th spot. Further back, you got Oscar Mangan and Peter Berryman, which make an all-British row number 3. Thomas Petitjean will line up in P7 with Leon Rudinger in P8. Pekka Toivonen in 9th, and Antti Ahola lines up in the 10th spot. Matti Sippola, race winner previously at Nürburgring. He starts on row number 6 as Samuel Lebert lines up in the 12th spot next to him. Marty Piatella starts P13 with Camilio Pezzoli in P14. Kim Eriksson starts 15th today with Corentin Guinness in the 16th spot. And then Joni Tanknen and Francisco Silva will bring things back to row number 9. Just getting to the end of the top 20 now. There is Thomas Gibson, starts P19, so expect him to try and work his way through this field. Cooper Murray in P20, that's Quentin Vialate there in P11. Benjamin Smith, P22, Sasha Gole, Jamie Moon bringing things down. And then your last couple of runners, as we're 25 seconds away from green, Pat Storr, Boyd, Lebegri, Pignoir, Martin, and Angeli. Bring things down to your 30 cars that will take the race start here today. So 10 seconds to go on this one before we get the green flag, as there they are, all lined up on the starting grid, just a couple of seconds away from getting the green flag for this round of the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge. Mikael Gard gets the race started from pole position. We have green flag racing at Silverstone. A good start from Gard from pole position, but the 2 Altus cars behind him try to have a little bit of a scrap in towards turn number 1 for the first time, but they all get line astern, at least for the first 5 positions. But this is where the first dives are going to happen into this right-hander here. You see battling between the 2 Williams Esports cars further back in the shot. That's the first battle that you see between Moreno Sorica and Oscar Mangan, and I think Mangan has just about been able to improve position on the start.
Yeah, good start. There's a couple of little incidents further back. Benjamin Smith and Cooper Murray going off at turn number 1 at Abbey, but the rest of them all heading down the Wellington Strait for the first time, named after the Wellington bombers that used to fly from this airfield. And these drivers, they're all in this queue. We've got a bit of side-by-side battling further back in the background of your shot, but right now at the front, the front 4 are working away. And here we go, Thomas Gibson trying to look down the inside on Woodcut. Looks to have taken a little bit of bumping and boring there on that car.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case. Look at this, 2x2 down the old pit straight into Copse Corner. the fastest corner on this racetrack. You do have to dab on the brakes here. And these GT4 cars, it all gets tight, it all gets close, and they make contact through there. Guinness out into the gravel for Prologue React Esports. We'll get the replay up on screen, and it just got all a little bit too close between all of those cars, all trying to fight for position just inside the top 20, top 15. And I think Guinness just got into the back of the core car of Gibson.
Yeah, you saw how the Gibson had to just check up into Cop's corner. That meant that Guinness had to check up as well, and he just got pushed from behind into Gibson's car. But look at this, race lead Gate and Webster. Marcello is there as well, and Mangan, 4th place. He's just sniffing around for a bit of a position as well.
Cooper Webster's wheeling that car at the moment and got a big amount of oversteer coming out of Stowe. But you have to remember, these cars are still on cold tires, so it's going to be a bit of a struggle. I'm seeing driver quickly falling down the order, as Guinness, I think, has had another problem. I've seen Daniel Paxtor also drop down. Libert is on pit lane, so we will have to see exactly what has happened in that situation. It was down in towards, I think Libert's just had a technical problem because he lost all control of the car and didn't apply the brakes before hitting the barrier. I think that's a hardware failure for the number 12.
Yeah, we'll get a look at this then. So he's on the brakes, and then it just goes straight on. Goes straight on. Yeah, that is a hardware failure, and that is something that can happen here in sim racing, that you can have these hardware failures and lo and behold you lose all control of your car and you head straight on into the tyre barrier in front of you. And unfortunately he's had to take a trip back to pit road, and that'll be the end of his race. But this lead battle, this is intriguing, because you've got, looking at this, incredibly, you've got 5 seconds covering 1st to 14th. This is brilliant stuff.
I mean, this is a bigger group than we saw at Le Mans with all the drafting going on there. At least it feels like. But yeah, Libert into the barriers. We can treat hardware failures like that as well, I guess it's a good analog to a brake failure in that situation, just going pretty much full speed into the chicane there. But back to the live pictures, of course. 16 minutes still left remaining in this race, and exactly as you said it, Paul, this leading group still very strong in terms of the numbers, and they're very close in terms of the gaps between them as well. I think Webster might have a little bit of a look here in towards Stowe, as Mikael Gar was trying to weave all the way down the Hanger Straight, trying to break the draft. Here comes Webster then, looking around the outside, cuts back to the apex, but again, it's just less than a car's length between the two cars in the lead.
You can't really make that move work around the outside at Stowe at this stage of the race here. If it's into the last laps and you're alongside him going into Stowe, then you can maybe make that work because you're going to compromise that lead car. But at the moment, that move there, it was a bit more of just a look to see what happened, and Gard able to hold that inside line, hold the apex, and able to stay ahead. But he's leading the queue, and you could see how that Gard trying to break the slipstream down the Hanger Straight. You could see the snake effect of the cars behind as you just look at this camera shot. All these cars all together in a line, and they're all really just staying together. You can see it on that shot there. They're just all in one big queue here. This is great stuff. But Gard feeling the need to try and break the slipstream on the exit of Aintree down onto the Wellington Strait.
Of course, big shout out to Tyler Maxson, currently running the cameras here for us for the Sprint Challenge. Of course, it'll be handed over to iRacing proper once we get to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. But in this one, we still got a long way to go in this race in the grand scheme of things. We're not even at the halfway point. This is a 20-minute race, of course, but it feels like anything could happen at this stage because everyone in this leading train is basically in with a shot at a very good finishing position here. And if they keep this tight all the way to the end of the race, we could have a lot of action on our hands. They're just being relatively docile at the moment. Gard is feeling a little threatened in the race leads due to the weaving coming down the straights to try and break the draft. But Webster hasn't committed to anything just yet. He follows right up to the rear bumper of Gard coming through Beckett's, but that's compromised his run through Chapel now, and his teammate Marciano is gaining.
Yeah, he is. So Marcello, we know he's not shy in coming forward, is Simone, the Italian, heading down into Stowe, and they're battling each other are the two teammates. I think Webster has wisely said, right, you take that line, but look at that, the cutback is on for Webster. He's compromised here, and here comes Oscar Mangan now. So all of a sudden, the Williams Esports driver is getting involved in this one. He's run wide, almost contact, and there is contact,
Webster.
Around goes Webster.
Yeah, that got a little bit too close for comfort through the final sector as Webster getting filed back, trying to hold on to position. He actually gave a shot to the back bumper of his teammate, of Marciano, and well, if there's a golden rule in racing, it's don't crash into your teammate.
It certainly is, and I think you gave it the old commentator's curse with that, because you said just a few seconds before that everyone was being a bit docile. Well, that's not docile, that's for sure, because these drivers have suddenly they've lit the blue touch paper and they've stood away. But you can see there's the contact between the two teammates, and then Mangan, he just loses it, does Webster, with Mangan alongside him. But back to live pictures, and so Mangan has got a teammate behind. That's Marino Sarica, and Sarica down the inside into Brooklands.
Yeah, Sarica getting up one position. So Oscar Mangan, after he's fought so hard to try and gain position, he slides back to that, what is going to be, we're actually looking back at P number 9 at the moment, because look at this. This is Cipolla and Piatella here fighting it out. So the two Finns giving us some action into Cop's corner. They're still going to try to go side by side through there, but can't get much ground on the outside. Cipolla will try to look for the cutback here, but again, doesn't quite get the speed off the corner. He can follow very closely into the back into Beckett section, but he needs to just set up for a run out of the chapel and get it done on the inside, perhaps in towards Stowe. But if there's one thing the driver ahead is going to do, is immediately cover off that inside line into Stowe, because that is a very, very dangerous position to allow your competitors to abuse.
It's worth pointing out, look at the front there. The front two have gapped now because of those little bit of incidents, and because of people swapping positions, it's allowed them to get about a 1.5 second gap between them and the rest of the gaggle. And Pete Berryman's actually dropped down a position just into Stowe, so from 5th down to 6th, and he's battling away with Petitjean through the club corner. Oh my goodness, around he goes. And I think that was Antti Ahola who made contact with him.
Yeah, Ahola too deep into the corner. That was always going to be a closing door. Berryman was taking the normal line, and Ahola sticking his nose in where it doesn't belong. You'll see it on screen. Ahola's trying to battle with the driver side. I think it was Rudinger. Goes deep into the second part of the chicane there, and that just so happens to be exactly where Peter Berryman was attempting to turn in. Berryman not at fault there, I believe. He was just the innocent party of Ahola trying too hard in terms of that fight that he was having with Rudinger.
Yeah, that was coming from about 10 miles back and making the move that wasn't on at all, as you mentioned. But look at this then. three wide down into Brooklands. He can make it work, but it slows each other down. Almost 4 wide into Brooklands there. Sensational stuff. And Piatella involved in that one. Pezzoli. You've also got Cipolla, Toivonen involved. Brilliant stuff between the 4 of them, and Kim Eriksson's joining in this battle as well.
You can see the black car currently going side by side with Cipolla in the core car. That's Pekka Toivonen. First appearance here for Kova Esports here on iRacing, in sim racing in general, so they're looking for a good result here to start off their particular campaign on iRacing. But so you see Kim Eriksson further back in the shot, looking to try and get involved. He's from Black Star Racing, which is basically the rival sim racing team in the Finnish sim racing community to Kova at the moment, I would have to guess, as Kim Eriksson working his way through, and he's been able to gain the position there over Cipolla. Eriksson's been on a massive charge on this lap. He started this lap in P12, and he's been able to gain a position or two, but back to the race lead then, because things are heating up here as well. Marciano is going for the race lead. Guard looking to take the defensive line in towards the chicane. Marciano around the outside, becomes the inside though for Club Corner itself. They give each other enough space. Guard spooked out of the corner though, and new race leader Marciano.
Oh, that was a great, aggressive but controlled move there from Simone, and getting the job done. He had enough of the car alongside heading into the right at part of Club that meant that Guard had to give the space, or else he was just going to end up turning his car on the front of Marciano's car. So, oh, we've got a car upside down in Abbey. How on earth? It's Kim Eriksson who's gone upside down here. So he's side by side then with Sipila coming out of Club. We'll look at this now. He's under attack, and I believe that's going to be Silver. Yep, and into the corner and up and over, sliding across into the gravel trap. Luckily, doesn't hit the barrier.
Let's have another look at this. That is a wild ride. I've never seen a wreck quite like that in iRacing, where a driver just slides on his roof all the way into the gravel. It's a big contact here with the car on the inside, just launches him up onto two wheels and then fully over. Wow, that's a huge wreck. Eriksson, of course, having to take the tow back to pit lane, unless you have someone like going off the circuit to try and help you back on your wheels. But there's the big look there for the race lead. Guard is not happy. You can see the flashing of the lights there, but I'm not sure what he's not happy about, to be honest. I
think Marciano is trying to get Sarika involved in this. They did have a 1.5-second gap, remember, just a couple of laps ago. Now Sarika and the rest of that queue is right there with them, and I think Guard is feeling a bit pressured because now he's got to look behind him as well as looking forward. He's flashing the lights again, is Guard. He wants to get ahead of Marciano, but Marciano, we've seen time and again in this series, he is not one for giving up.
No, he isn't, and well, it's Michael Guard is the meat in an Italian bread sandwich at the moment, as Marciano maybe looking to try and help out his compatriot here, maybe give him an opportunity, slow Michael Guard up a little bit. So maybe some cross-team cooperation in this situation, but at the moment, Marciano's been able to gap the guys behind slightly there by 0.5 second, coming across the start-finish line that time around. So I guess now Marciano is hoping that Guard will be preoccupied with Sarika's attempted progress here. Sarika going to be looking for a move around the outside through the right-hander in towards the loop, and Sarika again, big wide arc being taken, but completely misses the apex. He won't get the benefit of the higher speed off the corner from that wide line as a result. But look at that, side by side behind though. That's Oscar Mangan and Petitjean. They almost come together. Here comes Antiahola in the Kova car, looking to split them down the middle, 3 wide into Brooklands, but they'll back out of that. It'll be side by side between Petitjean and Mangan instead, all the way through Brooklands on the entry into Luffield. Mangan just about getting ahead.
Yeah, so Mangan able to hold on to that place, and I feel like he is just holding on right now. He seemed to just get a little bit out of sorts going through Abbey and Farm into Village and the Loop, so he just needs to calm himself down, get himself back onto his marks and run this through. But with 5.5 minutes remaining in this race, time is running out for these drivers, and the leaders are pulling away from this gaggle of cars. But Petitjean is looking racy. He's got a bit of damage to the front of his car, but Ahola and Rudiger behind, they're going to be looking to make some money moves as well themselves.
Yeah, there they are. Battle for P number 4 on circuit as we go towards 5 minutes to go in this one. And you can see Mangan all the way to left-hand side, but it looks like Petitjean's more concerned about Ahola attempting to make a move into Stowe. Ahola attempt around the outside perhaps here. We haven't seen it work just yet, but if you can hold it out there, you have the inside for the first part of the chicane, but Ahola's not able to make any progress. Instead, now he has to fight with Rudiger into the braking zone, and there's a move all simultaneously. Big elbows out through there. Petitjean somehow has been able to get through. He has to rub doors with Ahola coming into into club corner. But oh my word, how did those guys keep it together? It's still going on across the pit straight here with Rudinger and Heuer side by side. A big squeeze from Heuer into turn 1. And they still somehow survive. I don't know how they kept all those cars pointed in the right direction.
I think Petitjean has been to the John Clelland School of Racing because he's knocked his wing mirror off there. But through into the loop once again. And Mangan, the man who's missing out, he just seems to have not had the pace the second half of the race here. And now all of a sudden, the rest of the gaggle, Rudinger coming under pressure from Piatella. There's Pezzoli there as well. Toivonen involved. So Mangan, the one who's holding up this group of cars, I feel.
Yeah, it looks like it, as Heuer looks to try and do something here. Again, half a car width to the inside of the field. Just a big, aggressive look. But nothing comes of it, of course. They're side by side further behind. These guys don't know when to stop, it seems. There's Pezzoli, Piatella, Toivonen on the inside of Woodcut there. You don't usually see an attempted pass through there, but somehow he's been able to bring it side by side into Cop's corner. Piatella trying to go around the outside, simultaneously of Pezzoli. Things are getting interesting further ahead as well, as they'll almost look 3 wide. Big dooring, though, further back. Toivonen is off into the grass. Rudinger and Heuer, though, going side by side through Maggots and Beckett. You can see that on the live pictures at the moment. Heuer struggling on the inside of Maggots there, Beckett, and now Chapel, and Rudinger just about getting himself ahead, sliding across the nose of the Kova car.
That was Piatella coming back on track. I didn't think that was a safe rejoin from him to just absolutely plant one into the door there. And that was not the best driving, if you ask me. That wasn't on at all. He needs to give the space if he's gone off the track, which is what he did at Cops. Came back on at such a rate of knots and just slams into the side of the car, forcing him off. This gaggle of cars is giving us some great action here from 5th down, but you've also got the leaders are pretty close together. Looking at the timing screen there, because you look at the timing tower, 0.16 of a second between Marcheno and Gard. So Marcheno hasn't been able to pull away. We're just over 2 minutes remaining in this race. It's going to be very tight whether it's this lap or the next lap is going to be the white lap.
And you have to remember, at Le Mans, Gard had a race win taken away from him by the stewards due to an unsafe rejoin through the final corner directly into Peter Berryman. So God, he might be feeling that, well, he might think he deserved that race win. We don't, because it was a very, very difficult, very dangerous rejoin. But this is another opportunity to try and grab the race win now in this series, battling again inside the top 10 here, this time being Heuer and Rudinger. They almost trade paint from the middle. They do. Big contact on the exit of left field. Heuer out into the gravel, losing a good couple of spots as a result. And this will trigger a train reaction perhaps in this pack now, as Sippler had a bit of a look over Piatella onto the old pit straight, but he'll stay in line for now, coming through Cop's corner. So that's just how quickly things can get very, very spicy. Webster on the recovery drive from second place on the grid, trying to challenge Sippler into Maggots and Beckett. He gets the pass done. That was Sippler backing out of it.
Yes, it's a good recovery drive from Webster. He'll be absolutely kicking himself that he's not involved in that lead battle. But speaking of that lead battle, Marcheno holding the inside line. Gard deciding go one way. To the back of Marcheno, heavily into the wall. We go straight to the replay on that one. He tried to do the dummy here, did Gard, but I tell you what, he just got it wrong, timed it wrong, makes rear contact with the car in front. Your former race leader Marcheno, we'll see it on the replay here, and it's that switchback that he tried to do. It's that switchback that he tried to do here. He goes one way, then switches the other, but Marcheno's on the brakes and he catches the back of him into the wall heavily. But meanwhile, the leaders are still at it.
It's changed as well. We were a bit too quick on the replay because Sarika, in a side-by-side battle through the final sectors, just about got ahead of Gard, and it was only around about 10 seconds or so coming across the line to get the extra lap here. So we'll go one more. Sarika, it's a straight-up duel with Mikael Gard, but now maybe Gard, even if he does win this race, he might have the win taken away by the stewards again.
It could potentially do. That was a very controversial moment right there, and we've seen how it can go wrong. That's exactly what happened there.
Yeah, absolutely. So into Brooklands, and now through left field. Misrika's made a slight mistake through there. Guard can find his inside as they'll be door-to-door coming off of left field on the run through Woodcote. That will favor the car on the inside here. Mikael Guard trying to get as close to the old pit wall as possible to make the track shorter, but he's losing ground still. Now it's defensive line into Cops from Sarika, but he's going to lose a lot of speed here. The cutback is definitely on for Mikael Guard, and he's able to do it. Can he quite complete it, though? That's the question. There's no one else going to be involved in this battle as they head their way into Maggots, and Beckett's Guard is back to the race lead, but this simply is not done. We still have one long straight in towards Stowe. We still have one big braking zone into the final chicane, and that might be the two places where this gets decided here. Sarika, not the best of runs coming out of Chapel, though, but Guard still has to have his wits about him, weaving all the way down the circuit. Here comes the battle into Stowe Corner. Sarika around the outside, so much speed, attempted to be carried there, but he's overdone it, and that car just slides behind. And now Mikael Guard, last braking zone of the lap, then into the chicane. Sarika is not close enough, try as he might to try and close the gap, but it's not going to happen. Provisionally, Mikael Guard will come across the line, but it's another penalty drama.
Wow.
Oh my
that is brilliant stuff. The fighting was carrying on further down, by the way. They're still side by side across the line. Does Webster get 8th place? We'll have to wait for the official results to come through. But wow. I mean... just the drama on the penultimate lap of Marciano ended up in the wall. You then get those two battling out. I thought Sarika went a little bit too defensive going into Cop's corner. He didn't need to do that at all into Cop's corner. So in my opinion, he cost himself that win by taking such a tight line through Cop's.
Yeah, you can't really do a sort of late breaking move around the outside of Cops. It's not one of those things that's deemed entirely possible without an error from the car on the ahead. But wow, I just need to catch my breath, sort out my words. But before we have a little bit of a break between this and the start of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, these are the, again, for the second week in this series, provisional race results here with Mikael Guard. Similar situation for him, but this is pending steward's review after the race, because if the incident at the end of Le Mans is, if the stewards take the similar view in this one, then Mikael Guard again won't be able to hold on to that race win. Moreno Sarika in second place, Thomas Petitjean in third, Leon Rudinger in fourth, Pezzoli in fifth, Oscar Mangan in P6, Marty Piatella P7, Antio Hola in P8, Cooper Webster P9, and Francisco Silva will finish in the 10th spot from P18. So he's had a good race. Simone Maria Marciano, though, late race drama. He's the one that gets the car in his rear bumper, as he'll end up coming across the line in P11. Marty Stipler in P12. Peter Berryman P13 with mid-race drama for him as he got spun by a Hola, I believe it was, coming into the final couple of corners of the lap. Joni Tankanen P14, Jack Boyd P15, Via Latte in P16, Pignoir in P17, Toivonen 18th, Martin 19th, and Smith in the 20th spot. And then you see the rear third of the field: Daniel Patstor, Cooper Murray, Giacomo Angeli, Quentin Guinness, Jamie Moon, Kim Eriksson, Thomas Gibson, 5 laps down at the end of things. He has not had an ideal day. So that's your points leader, hemorrhaging a lot of points at the end of this race. Florian Lebrig and Sasha Gole, Samuel Lebet will round out the 30 car finishing results. My words, that was another crazy finish, and it seems like we're starting to get used to crazy finishes, well, in this series. I'm not sure what's causing that.
It just seems to be the state of play, and it is one of the great things about this series. The Porsche Sprint Challenge has thrown up so many exciting finishes, and actually, Paul, you said this, at the top of the broadcast. You talked about those battle packs and the fact that we are going to have so many drivers and cars in the same piece of real estate. You're going to almost end up in this situation naturally.
Yeah, it's the nature of this circuit. It's because there's so much of this circuit is to do with slipstream, and because it's such a high-speed circuit, and because these cars don't have the strongest slipstream at all, then you're going to get that close racing between each of those cars, and that's why you got those battle packs. That's why everything just sort of stayed in a queue and then sort of separated a little bit. And yeah, great racing as all. Couple of questionable moves, which I'm sure that the stewards will have a look at post-event, but definitely it still gives us some great action and a lot of things to talk about on this broadcast.
Indeed so, and of course the racing action for Saturday is not over yet, because coming next will be the fourth round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing from this same track, Silverstone. So if you thought the racing that we've seen already is exciting, just wait until you get 40 of the world's best sim racers doing themselves a sprint race and a feature race, and the chance to win $1,000 along the way as well. So with that, we are going to take ourselves a quick little break here. Coverage of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, well, that begins in just about 14 minutes time. But in the meanwhile, from Connery Maddock, Paul Smith, Tyler Maxson behind the cameras, and myself, Will Vincent, we'll see you very, very shortly.
40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. The checkered flag is out for Sebastian Job. Takes a double victory at home in the UK. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup.
Welcome to Silverstone. Welcome to the track that has the prestigious honour of hosting the first ever Formula 1 World Championship race back in 1950, and the track that, even though it has gone through changes over the years, is still as fast and as unique as ever. This is an airport track. It is a track that means that the wind blowing from east to west will really upset the drivers, but it's one where the drivers will spend a significant amount of time on full throttle, and that means for the fourth round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, we are in for a lot of fun. My name is Will Vinton. I'm joined for pre-race with Connery Maddock as we are getting ready to set the scene for this, the fourth round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. And well, Connery, yep, we've had a bit of a break, but there's still some interesting storylines to talk about even, and we've got to start with the qualifying king, Joshua Rogers, because so far this season he has been absolutely dominant in terms of qualifying, getting pole position, and of course that means he gets himself those extra qualifying points, and if he gets himself 2 more pole positions this season, he will also win himself a prize for being the pole position champion, getting himself a Porsche Tag Heuer Connect watch at the end of the season.
Yeah, of course, provided to us by the sponsor of the Porsche Esports Supercup, Tag Heuer. Thank you very much for doing that, and giving that sort of extra bonus prize as well, which is an important thing to note, because, like you said, Josh has been exemplary in qualifying so far in this series. He does take the slight penalty of the reverse grid, having to start further back through the field, but I don't think that has really phased him all that much. He still leads the championship, albeit by a couple of points over Sebastian Job, but those couple of points, well, you can get them in qualifying, can't you?
Yeah, and indeed, so I did the maths as well earlier this season. If you get yourself pole position and then finish in 8th place, basically where you would start with the inverse grid for that sprint race, then you'd actually get yourselves 23 net points at the end of the sprint race, which basically is the same as the 2nd place driver in the sprint race. So that's really important in terms of building your way up through the course of a race weekend. Talk about building your way up. Let's have a look at the schedule and how things are now for the rest of the season. So as we say, we're here today at Silverstone. In 2 weeks' time, we go to America and to Road Atlanta before hopping back over the Atlantic to about 50 miles southeast of here to Brands Hatch in Kent. August 29th, we go to Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, then to the rescheduled Nürburgring race on September the 26th, followed 2 weeks later by Le Mans. In fact, then rounding out the season will be Monza on October the 10th. So that's our schedule as it sounds right now. But Connery, talking about schedules and drivers, there's been one that many people have been keeping their eye on this year, and that is Sebastian Job, because he's had the momentum in the early part of the 2020 season, and that's been really important for him. And we might get Seb up on your screen in a moment. He's had, just one poor showing. That was at Barcelona, but apart from that, this is, in my opinion, Sebastian Job's best opportunity ever to win a world championship.
I think so too. He's already picked up 2 feature race wins so far this season. Round number 1 in the Netherlands, and of course round number 3 when we were back here in Britain for the race at Donington instead of here at Silverstone. So he's had awesome performance so far this championship. Like you said, he had that poor showing at Catalonia, but who else had a poor showing at Barcelona? That was his championship rival of Joshua Rogers, so it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because they had similarly poor results there. You see Jamie Fluke up on screen for you at the moment as he's currently stuck down in 17th in the point standings. But back to Seb Job though, because I was having a look at the practice times. Seb is actually the fastest driver in the little practice session that we've just had. So British driver, British track. I mean, the country doesn't matter all that much in than we used to in real life racing here on Sim Racing, but there's certainly an element of that. So if he can make it 2 feature race wins, both at the British tracks on the schedule, then that'll be some evidence to say that it does matter.
Yeah, indeed so. And Sebastian Job, actually, one of his breakout races was here at Silverstone. Let's actually look at this Silverstone track then, shall we, in a little bit more detail, because it is one that has evolved over the years. So we head ourselves over to the United Kingdom, and as we say, this track is located on the border of Northamptonshire and Leicestershire. As we zoom in, and really it is at that point we start to meet the Midlands of the English country as we zoom in now on the track. And the original start finish straight was on the left hand side of your screen on the exit of Luffield, then down towards Copse. But now we start on the southern part of the racetrack, and that is on the new wing part of the racetrack. You head into a very fast turn 1, turn 2, then slow it down. But then as you head towards Brooklyn, that is your first overtaking opportunity of the track, really. Exit Luffield, and you're back onto the older part of the track through Copse, and then it is flat out from there all the way into Maggots. You slow it down through Beckett's and Chapo, and of course then you got yourself the very long Hanger Straight, and then you conclude the lap by heading yourself through Stowe and then through Club. So it is fast. This racetrack is incredibly fast. Drivers on full throttle most of the way around, and that means we're going to see battle packs just like what we saw in the Porsche Sprint Challenge a little bit earlier on. And Connery, final point I want to make here is that we've got currently 8 teams represented in the top 10. This is a racetrack where you'd love to have a friend around. Are we going to see that today?
Yeah, that might be the given situation. I don't think it's going to be as influential here at this track compared to something like Le Mans, where it's basically a draft fest. It's trying to play chess at upwards of 200 kilometers an hour. So it's a massive situation there. But of course, you're a little bit further north as regards to this location of this track. Will it's Oxfordshire, not Leicestershire.
Yeah, I've got myself confused between Donington and Silverstone there. So yeah, Oxfordshire. The reason why I forget about Oxfordshire is because where Jeremy Clarkson is, and I like to forget it as much as I can. But we are heading to the point now where qualifying is already underway. We've got the Vodafone on board, and we're going to ride for a lap now around this newer Silverstone racetrack. And with that, let's hand over to your commentary team of Paul Smith, but first, Martin Haven.
Well, let's turn into the first corner. Just the tiniest little breath off the throttle to get the car settled as you sweep into Abbey through the left-hander at Farm. Hard on the brakes here, down into second gear in the Supercup cars, and then down to first for the sharp left. This new folded arena part of the circuit does give overtaking opportunities. Critical exit here. We get onto the Wellington Strait, named after the World War II bombers that used to fly from Silverstone, and heading down towards Brooklands, named after the first permanent road circuit in Europe. Right left-hander, and again overtaking opportunities here in the Brooklands Luffield complex, but you really have to have a big lunge. You may well see some of those. Avoid the gravel on the exit and hug the pit wall here really close as you sweep out through the old Woodcote corner, past the old pit buildings, where they've been starting Grand Prix since the 1960s, turning into Cox Corner. Much faster than it looks on the way in, because it's wider on the way out, over the little rise, through Maggots here, the left just riding the curbs and into the Beckett's S's, carrying the speed here, down a gear, slowing the car. Critical right-hander here, because this defines your speed to Cox Corner. Carry too much and you'll be all sorts of trouble out of the Chapel Curve onto the Hanger Straight. And the Hanger Straight, a chance perhaps to breathe, but particularly to just pick up a toe down into Stowe. It used to be an absolutely fearsome corner. It's tighter now, so you can't carry quite so much speed in. Dropping down into the Vale, pit entry on your right, and here's an overtaking opportunity as well, exiting the Vale. And again, we're now back to Club Corner, a three-part right-hand corner. Watch how much Tommy Østgaard has to work the steering. Don't run out all four wheels over the white line. That is absolutely track limits penalty territory. Well, there is a flying lap, and it was a quick lap as well from Tommy Østgaard. He is now in 7th place, but it is Josh Rogers who is the fastest man of all. That was in at the deep end introduction, wasn't it? Paul Smith, I'll catch my breath. So qualifying Josh Rogers on top of the pile, but just by a whisker at the moment from Sebastian Joe.
Yeah, those two seem to be duking it out each and every week that we bring you this series in qualifying. They're wanting to get those extra points that you get from the top 5. Interesting point. Graham Carroll, maybe a return to form for him, because he's up in 3rd place at the moment in qualifying. Remember, everybody, for the sprint race, it is the top 8 of the qualifying that get inverted. So at the moment, it's Tommy Østgaard who would no, they've just changed that because another time has come in. It's Ricardo Castroledo who would be the one who would be starting on pole position for the sprint race. But Dane Warren, he's a driver who has impressed me this season, and he's trying to get a good lap time in. No, in fact, he's going to abandon that one.
That's one of the unique challenges of this, isn't it? That drivers, you start to follow them and then halfway through they go, no, I messed that up, I'm just going to have to try and start again. So Josh Rogers, Sebastian Joe, and you're right as well, in 3rd position. Carroll, he had a good opening race weekend, won the sprint 2nd in the main race at Zandvoort, Graham Carroll, but since then it's been a bit of a disaster. If he gets an opportunity to regather the forces here at Silverstone, round 4 now of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, then that is a very timely opportunity for him. So currently lying in 3rd place. He's only qualified in the lead group on that one occasion in Zandvoort. And in fact, he wasn't even in the top 10 then. Last time out at Donington, Sebastian Joe missed the top 5, so he got no extra points for qualifying. And actually, that is the points difference between him and the leader, Josh Rogers. Sindre Setsaas, where is he on our timing screens? He is struggling for pace at the moment. It's Rogers, Joe, Carroll, Benecki and Warren, the points scorers at the moment. And Jeremy Brutaloo looks like he now would start from pole position. He's 8th fastest ahead of Mitchell de Jong and Ricardo Castroledo. So more quick laps, times coming in all the time.
Interesting to see Mitchell de Jong up there in 9th place. He's somebody who really hasn't been having a good time of it in the first 3 rounds of the championship here. We've had plenty of time to get practice in and to he's maybe worked on what hasn't been working for him here. So that is him moving forward through the field. So Mitchell is a quality driver, and expect him to be challenging as we go further into this series. But I think in terms of a championship battle, he was involved in that championship battle last year. He's just too far behind after 3 rounds.
Yeah, best result of the year so far, 15th in the main race in Zandvoort. Other than that, he hasn't been even in the teens. You got Marcus Jensen from Frederikshavn in Denmark. Jensen, nice looking run at the moment. A bit of a meander down the straight. You can see all the big concrete walls on the driver's right there as you come down the Hanger Straight on Grand Prix weekend. Would be massive and massive hospitality, but of course this year unlikely to be any of that. Formula One will be heading to Silverstone in the next couple of weeks, and the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup, the real-life racers in Supercup will be heading with them. They're in Hungary, of course, this weekend. And nice to see some sunny weather at Silverstone, the height of the summer in July. Marcus Jensen abandoning that one as well. Just a few seconds left in qualifying to complete your laps. And at the moment, Josh Rogers from Sebastian Job, the gap between them, 46 thousandths of a second. So that's absolutely a tiny margin, with Graham Carroll lying in third place. Clock runs out shortly on qualifying. So our top 8, the key will be, where is Jeremy Brutaloo? Let's take a look at the qualifying results then. Josh Rogers from Sebastian Job by that infinitesimal margin. Carol Benecki, Warren and Sanchez ahead of Holtzman, and Jeremy Brutaloo will start on the top 8 reverse pole position ahead of Mitchell de Jong, Ricardo Castro-Ledo. Let's take a quick whiz through the rest of the field, because we're not going to get much of an opportunity to see them go through before we start our race. So Jamie Fluke on row 9 of the grid, not such a great run through from him. Jack Sedgwick needs to try and recover some ground as well. And unfortunately, qualifying 24th, probably not helping there. No major surprises, I don't think, further down the order.
One thing I will mention about this qualifying result is that it shows how tight this field is. We've got 36 cars actually gridding up, 31 of them within 1 second of the pole position lap time. So that goes to show how close this field is in this series, and it's going to produce some interesting racing out there. We saw in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge how the cars run together in a queue of traffic and break off into little battle packs. Hopefully we'll be getting to see some of that action here in this.
Okay, so cars are on the grid. Jeremy Brutaloo, Patrick Holtzman will be row 1. Alejandro Sanchez starting in third place. There's the view down to the first corner here at Silverstone. We are ready to get racing underway for round 4 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. They start in Oxfordshire, race into Northamptonshire and back around again. And as we get ready to go, headlights flashing further back down the grid. Let's see who makes the best of the starts. The red and white car, Jeremy Brutaloo on pole position, and that was a well-judged getaway. Wheel spin controlled, and he leads the pack into Abbey for the very first time. The red bull car, Sebastian Job. There's Josh Rogers. He's battling as well. Just outside the top half dozen at the moment. It's Jeremy Brutaloo who leads the field through.
Yeah, it's looking like a clean start from everybody here today. That's a good one because, we've had a couple of drivers have an issue. Marek Cholak has had an issue further down your order, but everybody in the front able to get away clear. A little bit of a two-line action down the Wellington Strait. We've got a car off in the grass there as well. Not the ideal line through there. Yeah,
the Kimi Räikkönen Ferrari line, although this time they managed to miss the bridge. So good news, there's Graham Carroll, number 21, the second of those 2 Red Bull cars. Now, didn't look like he got the greatest start. He's lost a bit of ground, 5th position. Jeremy Brutaloo from Patrick Holtzman. Holtzman qualified in the top 5 just once prior to this, and that was in Donington Park. Unfortunately, 29th and 25th were his results. So Max Benecki in 4th place, a 2-time winner, 3 wins this season, the most for Sebastian Job, 2 for Max Benecki, and despite the fact that Josh Rogers leads the standings, he has yet to actually be first at the checkered flag. Max Benecki, double race winner in Barcelona, and exiting onto the Hangar Straight. You get a really good slipstreaming effect here. The bluff nose of the car, those big rear wings, generate a nice vortex behind. Sebastian Job looking down the inside, gets the move done, and Warren offline is going to lose a 2nd place. Through comes Josh Rogers. So Josh Rogers using the gap that Sebastian Job had opened up there, and he and Sebastian Job go by Dane Warren. So Warren losing out badly there, offline in Stowe. There's not really much you can do about it.
And we've seen, I've just seen Mitchell de Jong's dropping down the timing sheet rather rapidly, so something's happened to him. We see him there cutting across the inside of Club. Major drama for him. I imagine there's been some contact going into Club that's turned him around. But ever the opportunist was, he just got into the back of Warren then. So he was trying to follow through Sebastian Job and, of course, follow through the Josh Rogers car as well. But Josh Rogers, ever the opportunist there. He saw the gap open up and just went for it.
Here's the battle for second place then. Where you can see Patrick Holtzman in car number 22 right behind him. 27 rather, right behind him. 47, Alejandro Sanchez. Now Sanchez is having a really good season. 5th place in the standings, 2nd in the sprint at Donington, and 3rd in the main race. Showed that wasn't a fluke, and in fact he led the main race early on, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago, and gradually got overhauled in the end by Tommy Osgaard, who won both races in Donington Park, and by Sebastian Job, who finished in 2nd. Job is the 2nd of the Red Bull Racing cars. I know he's not, he's the 3rd of them in the queue actually here, because it's Graham Carroll in 21 who's in 5th ahead of Sebastian Job. Looking back as we whiz through the Beckett Sesses out of the Chapel Curve here, down the Hangar Straight, and now watch Sanchez just get bigger in the mirrors. It takes a long while. It's not the longest straight here at Silverstone, but there you go, there's the toe effect, and then they get onto the brakes. And he's just closed in maybe a car length or so.
But the problem for these drivers is that Holtzman is getting the slipstream off a boot loop as well, so it won't be as exaggerated, that effect of the slipstream in that queue of traffic. But Holtzman has actually just fallen back a little bit from Jeremy Bootloop now at the front. So 7/10, that battle is proving to slow each other down. Meanwhile, further back, Jensen as well, he's battling away with Jack Sedgwick. Johan Half is there as well. So they're fighting further down. That's 20th, 21st and 22nd in your field.
Yeah, and the hopping the curbs there doesn't help you. You need to keep the car really well stabilised out of club corner, otherwise you just give away traction. He's right up behind 29, Carl Jansen is car number 12, that's Marcus Jensen. Jensen, easy mistake to make, I'm sure I'll make that in a moment. Back with the battle for second, Holtzman is dropping away from Jeremy Brutaloo. This is really good news for the Frenchman. Brutaloo in front, and there's a tough battle for second, and it's not a two-car battle, because Max Benecki is there with the orange and white car. Right behind him, Graham Carroll, Sebastian Joe, Josh Rogers. So from 2nd to 7th, that is a 6-car queue, and Brutaloo has just got a tiny bit of fresh air. Just about a second by the time he gets onto the Hangar Straight. And I think the problem is Holtzman. Holtzman doesn't quite seem to be able really to hold as tight a line as the leader. Now, whether that will change as the tyres wear a little, the temperatures and pressures come up after the first couple of laps, and as the fuel load burns off, we'll have to wait and see. But at the moment, Jeremy Brutaloo doing just enough to creep away.
Yeah, he's just nice and calm, isn't he? He's out there at front, he's just hitting his marks, he's not looking in his mirror, and that's just so key to actually just keeping that lead, whereas the others, they're battling away further down. And speaking of further down, we've got a couple of the Apex Racing Team cars involved as well. Jared Philsell is there along with his teammate. Oh, and look at that! Sanchez has made his way through on Holtzman, and Benecke is going to follow him through at Club.
Yeah, it didn't quite work for Holtzman, did it? He just looked right from the first lap as if he was struggling, maybe even just for front end grip, because if the front's not there, the rear is going to follow it wide, particularly given where the engine placing is in your 911. And that, unfortunately then, for the Red Bull trio, means they are now going to try and share the same bit of tarmac, and behind is Josh Rogers. So up to second place, Alejandro Sanchez, third, Max Benecki. Could Benecki turn this into a win? Look what's happened in the last lap though, Paul. As we turned into Cox Corner a lap ago, Brutaloo was 0.8 in front. He's 1.4 seconds ahead now, so all this battling is helping the leader. Let's take a look again.
Yep, so here we are then, Stowe and Holtzman. He's just going to run a little bit wide on the exit of Stowe. Back end just not complying in with him, and there we go, Sanchez to the outside. If you can hold it around the outside, which is what Sanchez is going to do, you've then got the inside for Club, and it's crucial to have that inside. Holtzman can't turn in, and that allows Beneke to follow Sanchez through.
Well, you've got to say hats off to Holtzman. He could easily have really slammed the door there, but he gave him racing room. So Sanchez, he took the brave option, didn't he? Going the long way round the outside at the end of the Vale, but Holtzman gave him plenty of racing room. So Sanchez now under pressure from number 11, Max Beneke, and then Holtzman in fourth place, ahead of Graham Carroll, Sebastian Jobe, Josh Rogers, and a tiny gap back then to Dane Warren in that black and turquoise car. Warren not able to hold the pace of this chasing pack. But Jeremy Brutaloo, once it's settled down behind him, they are now half a second closer than they were at the beginning of the last lap. So if Sanchez and Beneke, the key here I think is Max Beneke. If he just settles down behind Alejandro Sanchez, the two of them just concentrate on getting the line right, they can catch Jeremy Brutaloo. And if they don't catch him, it doesn't matter who's in front, they ain't going to win it. So they've got to be a little bit pragmatic now. It's only 6 minutes, but if they don't catch him, then they're only battling for second place. So I think perhaps one lap from Max Beneke just being settled down behind Sanchez will be the place to be. Doesn't look like Josh Rogers is settled down, does it, in the 92 car, all over the back of Sebastian Jobe. But Graham Carroll not making any inroads at all on Patrick Holtzman, 21 and 27 ahead of him. And it looks as though all three Red Bull drivers have got a very, very similar setup. And I think Josh Rogers has got a quicker car.
Yeah, he certainly did. Well, he proved it in qualifying, didn't he? Being able to set the fastest time there. But qualifying fast is one thing. Getting the race results is quite another. But those Red Bull cars, they just don't quite seem to have that edge over the guys in front. And normally, what I would be saying is maybe start thinking about the team game. Sebastian Jobe is the lead contender for that Red Bull outfit. But however, because Rogers is so close to them, if they start trying to move over, they're going to gift points to Josh Rogers behind.
Right now, it's actually working well for Sebastian Jobe because his two teammates who are in front aren't a challenge yet. Sanchez is behind them as well. He's 6 in the points, so he's not a worry. Jeremy Brutaloo, okay, absolutely out of it so far. That doesn't matter at all. The key for Sebastian Jobe is right now that Josh Rogers is behind him. Now, Josh Rogers outscored him in qualifying, but Jobe is going to outscore Rogers if nothing changes here in the race. So right now, that's where he needs to stay. Don't attack Carroll. Don't worry about Holtzman. Stay where you are. Deny the points to the guy who is most important to you right now. And that's exactly what he's going to do. And Sebastian Jobe will hang on there. And so Josh Rogers, we've seen before, he doesn't have desperate lunges, but boy, can he make up overtaking places. You can't take him for granted. He could easily throw a spanner in the works on the final lap. We'll have to wait and see how that works. 98, Kevin Ellis Jr. just behind the 33 car. That's Ricardo Castro-Ledo. Castro-Ledo looked for a moment, didn't he, as though he was going to be 8th place and therefore pole position, but he just got eased out to 10th, and that's where he still is. In fact, Jeff Biassi got by him early in the race. He's a Brazilian driver, and he's in 9th. Ricardo Castro-Ledo in 10th position. Riding on board with Josh Rogers. Where are we going to find a gap? What has he got? Where's the VRS car advantageous compared to Sebastian Jobe's number 22 Red Bull machine right in front?
Well, that's it. But the thing is, because we are still in the early stages of the championship and we're in the sprint race, you don't want to try anything too risky, because if you end up, say for example what happened to Mitchell de Jong earlier in the race, you end up spinning, dropping to the back of the field, you lose your chance of points, and you're also giving yourself a bad qualifying position then for the feature race, because of course the results from this race set the grid for the next race. So you've got to weigh up what is good for you. And Josh Rogers right now is in a comfortable position because his direct rival is right in front, and it's only a handful of points difference between, in fact it's 1 point difference between the two positions. So really, right now, if I'm Josh, I'd just sit there.
Yeah, there's an awful lot more at stake in race 2. Now, as they are, Sebastian Jobe will be on row 3 of the grid, Josh Rogers on row 4, so that's not particularly material. If they were 5th and 6th, they'd be the same distance apart, just on opposite sides of the track. So right now, it looks as though they're pretty much happy with that. Just over 2.5 minutes left to go. Let's give these guys some TV time as well. 24 Mitchell de Jong in the middle of that one. And yeah, that spin in the Vale really cost him. He locked up hard trying to avoid contact with the car in front. Unfortunately, he did himself no favours. Matti Kaidisoya is right in front of him. But these guys are battling down in the teams, aren't they?
Well, they're battling down 27th, 28th. Yeah. So that shows how far Mitchell fell down. He was in the top 10 when he had that error in the Vale and Club, and that's dropped him all the way down outside of the points, because only the top 20 in the sprint race score points. So, you know, we've got the battle there up on screen. We've got Josh Rogers in the smaller screen battling away with Sebastian Jobe, but we've got this Mitchell de Jong train right now, and Thibaut Kozabal behind as well, giving a bit of pressure, but not sat right on the engine cover.
Yeah, Casabon, 18 years old. He's the youngest driver in the championship this season, and he is actually the top scoring French driver so far, 22nd place. That's a result of good team placings in Zandvoort and in Donington Park. So in actual fact, our race leader, Jeremy Brutaloo, 32nd. He scored once this year. He was 15th in the main race in Donington Park, the last point scorer. So that's a big turnaround for Jeremy Brutaloo. 1 point score in 6 outings so far, and now it looks as though he's not only going to win this sprint race, but have a chance of a podium maybe in the main race as well. If he starts on pole position as he should do, then that could be very good news indeed for his financial situation perhaps towards the end of the season, as much as the points right now.
I just want to draw attention. First of all, this is going to be the start of the final lap. Secondly, half a second just over between first and second place. So Sanchez has done his best to try and catch up that gap to the front, but it's still not quite enough, I don't feel, to get the any moves towards the end of this lap.
Well, I'm always disinclined to argue with the timing, but it looks like more than half a second. That's several car lengths. Unless there is a big mistake from Jeremy Brutaloo, then they are not going to catch him. Alejandro Sanchez, Max Benecchi, second and third place at the moment. Benecchi just about hanging in there. And then Patrick Holtzman has crept away from Graham Carroll, Sebastian Jobe and Josh Rogers. So Holtzman just finding a little bit of pace towards the end of this one as the fuel load burns off. The real problem now for Jeremy Brutaloo is they've caught him in 15 minutes. So that means that if this repeats itself in the main race, they'll have another 15 minutes to figure out how to get by him. So I'm not sure quite what he could do about that with his setup between the end of the sprint race, the end of this lap and the main race, but he needs to have a little bit of a think about how he's going to mitigate that damage. Out of the 13th, number 43 is Brian Lockwood. He's 13th place at the moment. And right around him, another Brit, 31, David Williams, currently racing from Germany with the team, but he's from the UK. Meanwhile, at the end of the Heuer Strait, are we going to see a swap around? Yeah, I think Carroll defended too early. Graham Carroll might just have left the door open for Sebastian Jobe unintentionally. Jobe's got to get himself out of jail here because he can't afford to make a mistake, go off, get penalised, or allow Josh Rogers to get through. And there's been a change. Max Benecchi. No, there hasn't been a change. Holtzman in fourth across the line, and Jobe and Carroll. That's very close indeed. Sebastian Jobe just, well, according to the timing, an absolute dead heat to the 1,000th. How are they going to decide that one for the grid? They can't both have the same grid spot.
well, I'm sure we'll get the official result, but that was really intriguing how Sebastian made the move there into Stir Corner and to get alongside there. And yeah, we can see it there, really close, about half a tenth of a second between them of the timing line. So Brutaloo with the win though. Great win and result for him ahead of Alejandro Sanchez and Max Benecke in third place.
Yeah, so Max Benecke, the top championship scorer in that little group. He's fourth ahead of Sanchez, fifth. And then Patrick Holzman, Sebastian Joe, Graham Carroll. Good news for Sebastian Joe, putting 2 spots between himself and Joshua Rogers. And do you know what? At the end of the season, if you are the winner by 1 single point, every one of those edge-of-the-seat moves could be absolutely critical. You don't want to be watching somebody else take it by a point. Of course, if it gets down to tie break, Sebastian Joe, with 3 wins, has the advantage, the high ground over Josh Rogers, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Here's the rest of the top 20. Let's take a little bit of a look further down. Where did Mitchell de Jong end up in the end? 27th for the American driver. Sometimes having contact is actually less damaging to yourself than it is to avoid it. And Marin Czolik, the last car across the line, so he had problems as well. He was 10 seconds behind Alexei Usiakova, so he had plenty of trouble in that race. Well, that gave us an indication, I think, Paul, if nothing else, of where we might expect some moves to come from. And as ever, the Vale is just, it always looks like it's such a small area of tarmac, it couldn't possibly be big enough to actually put a pass in. But the key there is the hanger straight and stow that sets you up. And the Vale is just where you put the ball in the back of the net.
It certainly is, and we saw a couple of moves through there. Of course, Sanchez as well, he got his second place through making that move. So it is a place that you can make an overtake, not always down the inside into the Vale. You maybe want to hold around the outside, and that's what we've seen here. So yeah, really intriguing how the second race is going to go, the longer race, where the money is on the line.
Yes. And of course, you know, right now, as we said right from the very beginning in Zandvoort, it's about points. Points make prizes, and giving points away is to be avoided at all costs. It's better to be 6th than nowhere. Of course, it's better to be 5th than 6th, but that's where the experience comes in. It is risk versus reward. You can't just bet the house on everything every single time. So again, you know, Josh Rogers, Sebastian Job, they're going to have to be very cautious. And for Job, it's double jeopardy, triple jeopardy, because he's got teammates around him, not just physically where they're racing, but also on track. And that has got to be as tough as anything else, is dealing with your teammates in a teammate manner, but also somehow putting yourself first. So you don't want to throw them under the bus every time, but just sometimes, you know, that's where they have to go. In the end, he's battling Josh Rogers. He's not battling Graham Carroll right now. He's not battling Patrick Holzman either, at least at this stage of the series. Race 4. Yeah, let's talk about the schedule, because, of course, we have had a little bit of an extended schedule. So we're at race 4 at Silverstone, after Zandvoort and Barcelona at the beginning of May, and Donington Park at the end. We head to Road Atlanta. That is such a fabulous racetrack. I love that track so much. Great place to go racing. And then the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch. Well, Road Atlanta is, it was bought by Don Paynos about 15 years ago. It was a real old school racetrack. Like Silverstone, well, actually like Brands Hatch in a lot of ways, lots of elevation, and they sort of modernised it, put in some runoff area, but it is still scary as hell when you come over the rise at the top of turn 12 and down the plunge into 13, burying the throttle. It's just a terrifying place to be if you're in the passenger seat, that's for sure. So that's a great race to go to. And then we come back to the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch, and again, no room for error at Brands. It may look like a Grand Prix circuit, but to all intents and purposes, when you're out in the country, it's like a street race. You put a wheel off, and the accident is going to be a big one. So plenty of racing to be done here. Of course, we get a chance to go back to the Nordschleife, back to the Circuit de la Sarthe, to the full Le Mans circuit as well, before we head to Monza for the season finale.
Well, there we go. Thank you very much, Martin. As we did see an absolutely fantastic sprint race here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup at Silverstone. I'm Connery Maddock, and Paul will be sticking with me at least for another couple of moments before we get into the feature race here for this round of Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. It's a solid result for Jeremy Brutaloo there, Paul, and it's a repeat of his the International Motor Show in Frankfurt results in 2019, where Porsche held a special event here for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. He came out on top in that as well, so it seems like this track is a favourite for him.
Yeah, it's one that he really does well at, and he really does seem to thrive at this track. But as Martin mentioned in that sprint race, the drivers behind Sanchez and Benecke were able to catch him up in the second half of that race. And this race, of course, 30 minutes, double the amount of time. Well, it's one of those races where you've got to be wary of your tyre wear. We just saw the track temperature, the conditions just a few moments ago. To give you it in metric, 20 degrees clear skies here at Silverstone, but that means that the track temperature is 38 degrees Celsius if you do use the metric system there. So tyre management is going to be key towards the end of this race.
Yeah, of course, it's not as much of a factor in the heat race since it's only 15 minutes, but double the length of the race, the tyres do become more of a factor coming towards the end of 30 minutes here. So we'll get to see how that one plays out. Of course, we do have the case of the colder tyres on the starts to contend with as well. So that's, as always, is a big feature here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. But like something that Martin said, Paul, at the end of that race, that gain of position for Sebastian Job is going to be very important at the end of the day, because like Martin said, if the championship is going to be this close coming into the second half of the season, you're going to need every single point that you can get, and if it comes at the risk of putting your teammate in the wall or making contact, then it's simply something you have to do. I did say in the support race, the last thing you want to do is make contact with your teammate, but when the championship's on the line, there's something sometimes has to be done. Thankfully, they didn't make contact in this instance, but I could so easily see that happening coming through a tight section such as Club.
Yeah, it is a place where you can make that move, but you have to have the cooperation of the other driver as well, as Martin said as well. Other drivers could have been very forceful and closed the door and pushed them off track there. So if you have that cooperation between yourselves, you can make that move work. One of the other places that you can make that move as well is when you've gone through Albion Farm into Village, the breaking point into Village. That's enough a good spot to make a move on your compatriots, on your rivals there. And we didn't actually see that many moves attempted in there, and it's probably because the cars are so far on the limit coming through Albion Farm that as soon as they're getting the car settled, they're then on the brakes, and with no ABS on these cars as well, you get it slightly wrong and you're going straight onto the scene of the accident.
Yeah, you absolutely are. So with just about a minute before we get to the starting grid for the feature race, a little bit of a side story for you. If Max Benecke finishes well in this race, we think on the podium, then he will be able to be the first driver to hit 11,000 iRating here on iRacing. So before anyone else even hits 10k, Benecke looks to be able to hit 11. So keep track of that throughout this race. But for me, that's going to be the end of my little stint. Back to you guys, Martin Haven, Paul Smith for the commentary.
Thank you, Connery Maddock. Yes, it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens with Max Benecke. Of course, he's starting in third place after finishing on the podium in the sprint race. Where you start is where you finished in the sprint. So it will be Jeremy Brutaloo who starts on pole position. But to see Max Benecki getting up to that 11,000 mark will be a big moment for him, definitely. And Paul, that just adds a little bit more spice to everybody else to try and somehow find a way of reining that man in.
He has been absolutely sensational. He's been a revelation on iRacing, on the road side of things, and I've been privileged that I've been able to commentate on most of his big achievements, winning a GT World Championship a couple of years ago as well for his team. So yeah, he is a top driver, and he's an amazing talent. But we've got the starting grid here then.
Yeah, here's the grid. Our race winner, Jeremy Brutaloo, ahead of Alejandro Sanchez and that man, Max Benecki. Then Red Bull Central, Patrick Holtzman, Sebastian Job and Graham Carroll. And right behind, the points leader, Josh Rogers, ahead of Dane Warren, Jeff Chiassi and Ricardo Castellede, rounding out the top 10. Let's scroll quickly through the rest of our grid. Jamie Fluke down there on row 8 of the grid. And Mitchell de Jong, who started well up in race 1 down in the teens. So he has an awful lot of work to do to try and recover from that tiny little error that ended up costing him so badly. 36 cars on the grid at Silverstone. We are ready for the main race. Round 4 of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. 30 minutes to get this decided. The red and white car on pole position. Jeremy Brutaloo made a great start in the sprint. How will he do here? Alejandro Sanchez jumped away very smartly indeed. Will he be alongside? He will be alongside into the first corner. Can he get it done in Abbey? I think he can. I think Max Benecki's gone through as well. If Max Benecki plays his cards right, he could end up taking the lead here on the outside, Jeremy Brutaloo. And unless Brutaloo finds a little bit more into the hard left-handed turn 4, he's going to lose out there. Benecki in second. Which of the Red Bull cars comes through underneath 21? Is that 21 or 22 or 27? Hard to tell. So that's Sebastian Job up to 4th place. And through as well comes Josh Rogers. Looks like he's going by Graham Carroll down the Wellington Strait. Somebody else in the barriers. And that is, I'm not sure, was that...
Jack Sedgwick was off, Kaida Soja is facing the wrong way as well. So numerous drivers in the background of the shot we saw heading the wrong way. And now Sebastian Job going side by side with Jeremy Brutaloo, having to cut back in to that slipstream. He wants by Jeremy as quickly as possible. He does not want Benecki and Sanchez to pull away.
Particularly Benecki, because Benecki and Sanchez 4th and 5th in the championship are potential rivals. But look for Josh Rogers on the left-hand side of your picture, just by the timing bar. 92 car has finally made it by Graham Carroll. He's going through on the inside in the Beckett's S. He's on cold tyres. That's where he's going to try and make the move on number 27, Patrick Holtzman. Doesn't get it done, and he's in the air and he's out. And that is a disaster for the points leader. And that is absolutely a gift for Sebastian Job. It is only the opening lap, but he will rejoin right at the tail of the field almost. That's a huge moment there for Josh Rogers.
He got out wide through the start of Beckett's, got onto the grass, he couldn't get the car slowed down, so he came back across traffic. I'm sure we'll get a replay at some point on screen for you, but he tried to get onto the brakes, cut in front of somebody. Very little that he could do about it. We'll see it on the replay here then. So it's in the first part of Beckett's then. Through the right, he'll then run it out wide. He's sliding on those cold tyres over the grass. He can't get it stopped. And then Dane Warren it is who gets into the back of him. Graham Carroll is the kind of innocent party in that he got spun around as well. Big drama here early on in the race. And Josh Rogers, where has he ended up on the field? Because he's dropped all the way down to 27th. He's out of the points.
Yeah, he's a long way out of the points as well, isn't he? Alejandro Sanchez leads, and there is the 92 car. No, he's got a lot of work to do, Josh Rogers. And unfortunately, that was him. I pointed out on cold tyres, full tank of fuel into the Beckett's S's. He was really hanging it out, and unfortunately it just turned around and bit him on the backside. So he's squeezing his way back through, goes by Jonas Wallmeyer, And there is the takeoff ramp, and absolutely no harm, no foul for Dane Warren. He had nowhere to go. And the real loser there, unfortunately, and again, this is the second time this season, Graham Carroll, innocent party in somebody else's accident, and he just got fired off as Josh Rogers came back on. As you pointed out, Paul Smith, Rogers on the grass had no chance of getting the car back under control, and he was just an unguided missile, and it was just bitterly disappointing for Graham Carroll, who in race 1 looked like he was starting to turn his weekend around. And go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to say, he really looked like he'd got the bit between his teeth with Graham and really looked to be getting his season back on track. And then this happens here, as you mentioned, innocent party and that's all. But here's the battle and at the front. Sanchez, can he pull away from Max Benecke behind? Or does Benecke just get stuck in that draft effect, that slipstream effect, lose a little bit of the grip on the front end? So that then it brings Sebastian Job into the battle, and if those two start fighting, Sanchez will be rubbing his hands with glee and try and pull away.
Well, listen, this is all about the top 3, isn't it? Because they are all in the top 5 in the championship. Sanchez, Benecke, Job. Brutaloo, not a factor. Holtzman, not a factor. Jeff Giassi, Kevin Ellis Jr., none of them are a factor right now. Tommy Usgaard, who was 3rd in the points after Donington, is absolutely nowhere, so he's out of the reckoning. So Max Benecke now ahead of Sebastian Job by 1 spot. That's not good enough. He's got to get as far ahead of him as he possibly can. But the same deal for Sanchez. How many points is he behind? He's only 6 points behind Benecke at the beginning of the weekend, and so he's already finished ahead of him. He's already closed that points gap right down. And so for Sanchez now, a win here could see him leaving Silverstone potentially 3rd in the championship.
We could potentially see that, and it'd be great for the whole of Spanish, the Iberia area of sim racing. It's a huge amount of sim racing comes out of Spain and Portugal, and to get themselves a win through Alejandro Sanchez would be absolutely sensational. It'd be wonderful to see. We've got the 2 battle boxes up on screen there. We've got that battle for the lead, which is kind of saying stagnant. Then that battle for 9th is pretty close together. You've got Dane Warren, Brian Lockwood in 10th place, who's trying to move forward. David Williams is really on his tail as well with Christopher Dan Beats. In fact, Lockwood going very defensive here on Williams.
Yeah, Williams sending it up the inside, but he's on the outside of the Vale. And actually, it's easier to initiate the move, but it's harder to hold on because you get hung out to dry on 3 right-hand corners. And as you saw, that didn't work well for the man on the outside. So he remains where he is, but there was a change behind, I think, wasn't there? Was that Lockwood and Christopher Danbeats?
No, it was Williams making his way past Lockwood, right. Yes. So it was for 10th, and you can see them battling 3 wide behind those 2 as well. Yeah. So going in to the right-hander at Village, as I said in that break between the 2 races, that is a good point to make up some places.
In fact, it was Jamie Fluke, I think, made up a spot there on that lap as well. He's now up into 12th ahead of Christopher Danbeats and Sindre Setsource. So there's Setsource at the back of that little group on board here. Just alongside us, the 83 car. That is Bobby Zelensky. So we're with Mac Backham. He's lost a little bit of ground here and trying to make the move on the exit here of Luffield. And I 4 wheels off inside the circuit here, because you really almost want to leave paint from those barriers on the car to get the tightest line and the straightest exit out of Luffield into Copse Corner. Just breathe off the throttle. It's almost flat in 4th. Pulling 5th, pulling 6th as you start to just go a fraction light over the brow here into Maggots and then into the Beckett's S's. Down to 5th, down to 4th. Holding on to the revs through 4th gear. And they'll be down to 3rd here. And this is where you start to accelerate for Stone. Right there in that 3rd element of the Beckett's S's. Carry the speed out onto the Hanger Straight. 98 just pulling out of the slipstream. Couldn't quite make a move there. Kevin Ellis Jr. right behind number 7. That's Jeff Giassi. And that is the battle for 6th position. the Brazilian having a return to form here, actually, Jeff Chiassi.
Yeah, having a really good outing here is Chiassi. We were impressed with him at Zandvoort, weren't we, with his performance. One of the new drivers to the series, and really giving us a good showing out there on track. 7th place at the moment. Kevin Ellis Jr., the Scotsman, he's been fighting on and trying hard to move through the field. And 7th right now. That's a good spot to be in, considering that he started further down the order in 11th. So he's got himself forward a few spots in this race.
Of course, everyone will say, well, he's a British driver, so of course Silverstone's home for him. Well, not if you're a Glaswegian, it's not. It's a long way from home. But I don't think we race at Knock Hill in the Esports Supercup. On board with Max Benecchi now. Connie Maddock has been sitting quietly being super stat man, and pointed out that if Connery finishes, if Max finishes on the podium, then he will move up into the 11,000 points mark. And right now, I think he is aiming to finish on the top step of the podium, because he's closed the gap down to Alejandro Sanchez. Sanchez looking for his first ever Super Cup win in sprint or feature. 3 podiums in the last 2 seasons, 2 of which came at Donington Park. And he was unfortunately a little bit out of form in the, no, he wasn't, he was 2nd and 3rd, wasn't he, in Donington Park? I'm looking at the Barcelona results. He had a bad Barcelona, but he came right back to form in Donington this season. But a win, it's still a long way away, isn't it? 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's a long time to try and hold on to the win. And the thing is, the person you can't see on this onboard, this Vodafone onboard shot right now, is that man right there. Sebastian Job is on the tail of Max Benecchi. These two have had fights in the past as well between the two of them, so they're no strangers to each other, Max and Sebastian. But right now, Job, he's thinking about the championship. This is a great opportunity for him to get a ton of points. Don't do anything rash right now, because you are in line to gain some serious points. Josh Rogers is 24th at the moment, so he would be in line to get 2 points in this main race.
Well, if Sebastian Job does nothing now, he's still going to leave Silverstone as the points leader, and with a decent margin as well over Josh Rogers. So right now, it's definitely his job to do as little as he can. On the right-hand side, Sebastian Job's view. On the left, Max Benecchi, both visor cams. Look in Benecchi's mirrors, you can see Sebastian Job moving around. And from Job's viewpoint, watch Benecchi. He's using subtly different lines, I think, from our race leader, Alejandro Sanchez. Looks like Benecchi has got a little more front-end grip. He's able to use a slightly tighter exit on the corners. Now, the problem is, when you're doing that in somebody's turbulent air, you're asking more of your tyres when you've got a heavier car than they are, and that means that if you've got a front-end advantage, it will go away the more you try and use it without actually using it to make a pass. So it's just got to be a little cautious about dressing the tyres too much. Let the car run a little wider. Don't be looking inside him all the time. This is a long game. We've still got 18 minutes of this race to go, so more than half distance. Got to keep your tyres in one piece. On board with the MSI Esports car, looking back down the Hanger Straight. Benecchi defends early, and Job sends it down the inside into Stowe. Wow, he was coming with a head of steam. Benecchi still side by side at the Vale, but he's on the inside, and unless Sebastian Job gives him room, and he does, Job could have been alongside, but that would have risked a big incident there. Sebastian Job didn't quite have the overlap he needed this lap, but suddenly a little breathing space for our race leader.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think it was Max Benecchi just moved a little bit across on Sebastian as they headed into the Vale, which just made Sebastian feel nice about keeping it out there. And that is what Max Benecchi had to do. Just those little subtle movements can put somebody off from making a move. But it is very difficult to try and hold on to a position around Silverstone, but it can be done. and you can be at the front of a train, almost a trolley train if you defend too hard. But as they head on through Brooklands, and again those different lines being adapted, this time between Job and Beneke.
And in fourth place is our sprint race winner, Jeremy Brutaloo. So it's another potential big bag of points for him. But his best lap is in the 2-minute 3s. Our top 3's best laps are all in the 2-minute 2s. In fact, their current laps are in the 2-minute 2s as well. And Brutaloo only lapping just in the 2:03s. So he doesn't have the pace of the lead trio. It's boy, beg your pardon, it's not Essex, is it? Anyway, southeast of England. Sebastian Job, a great bumper cam view again through the Beckett's S's. You see the marbles being thrown up. He had a tidier run through the S's as well than Max Beneke, and that gave him a little bit more drive onto the Hanger Straight. That's what we saw before. Beneke a little bit more controlled though this time, didn't have to go defensive as they got to the end into the braking area on the Hanger Straight, but it does mean that Sebastian Job also didn't have to go tight into Stowe, and so he's carried more speed through the corner and he's closed right up as they end the lap. So, end of lap 4, and they continue to battle here. This 30-minute enduro race, the main race of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup race here at Silverstone. Just behind these guys, Jeremy Brutaloo a little ahead of Patrick Holzman, Jeff Giassi, Kevin Ellis Jr., Ricardo Castro-Ledo, and then 9th and 10th, Dane Warren and David Williams. Their battle continues as well. There is Giassi with Kevin Ellis Jr. right behind him, then Ricardo Castro-Ledo, that's the red and white colours, and then a little bit further back, the black and turquoise of Dane Warren. I said that when he was just behind the lead group as well in the sprint race as well. So he's just a little out of reach at the moment. On the left, the leads trio. And if we see a move from Sebastian Job, I think it will either be opportunistic, taking advantage of mistake from the orange and white machine of Max Beneke, or somewhere on the last lap. I don't think he's going to try anything in the next sort of 10 or 12 minutes, unless the opportunity is just handed to him on the plate. And at the moment, Beneke not really looking like he's got much to show our race leader either. So this could be a very big day still for Alejandro Sanchez, but we've only just passed halfway, Paul Smith.
I personally think that they're in this sort of holding pattern right now. They're just waiting for their opportunities, maybe just letting their tyres come back to them if they've pushed them a little bit too hard in Beneke and Job. So maybe just sitting back, waiting for that opportunity, and then go for it later on in the race, because they know that if they start battling too hard, they're going to bring that queue of traffic from Jeremy Brutaloo back. They're going to bring them into this lead battle. So right now, at this point, the best thing for them to be able to battle for the lead towards the end of the race is just to hold station, keep putting the laps in. I mean, the lap times that they've just put in are all within a tenth of a second of each other in the front three. But even Jeremy Brutaloo and Holtzman and everyone back, they're all within that 2-minute 3.5.6 mark as well. So the leaders aren't really pulling away so much at the moment.
Well, of course, second and third, Max Beneke and Sebastian Job are absolutely governed by the speed of Alejandro Sanchez. So unless they can find 2 or 3 tenths, and they can't at the moment, then that's the speed that they're running at. Here's Josh Rogers, 92 car. I have to scroll a little bit further back down the timing screen to figure out where he has got to.
He's 20th at the moment.
All right,
so
okay.
He's in line for some good points. 6 points in this one. Of course, points go down to 25th for the main race compared to 20th for the sprint race. So he's in the points. That's the main thing. He needs to get whatever he can and do a little bit of damage limitation right now.
Yeah, he's trying to chase. The gap ahead of him is to Mitchell de Jong, who is still trying to recover from his race 1 mistake when he was... I mean, think what a different race weekend it might have been for the driver of the 24 car. What was he, 5th position or battling for 5th position when he spun, ended up out of the points in race 1. He's going to walk away instead of with, almost guaranteed 2 top 10 results, maybe even 2 top 6 results. Little de Jong will walk away with maybe 6 points or 10 points. It's ill reward for a weekend that started well. And that, unfortunately, is, that's the ups and downs of motor racing. If you make a mistake, then you can end up paying really heavily for it. If you don't make a mistake, often it's because you didn't make a move. You tend not to win things if you don't make moves as well. Back with our top 3. Still the race being led by the number 47 of Spaniard Alejandro Sanchez, the Magdaleno for MSI Esports, not finding anything in pace ahead of Max Benecchi, number 11, or Sebastian Joe, number 22. But at the moment, he doesn't have to have an advantage, he just has to have no disadvantage, because Benecchi can't really go fishing, Paul, can he? Because Sebastian Job is right there. And if Benecchi miscues, he's going to lose out again to Job.
Yeah, he knows that one little mistimed move could then put him in a disadvantage and put him offline and just open the door for Sebastian to make a move. So he knows that he's got to be careful with the moves he makes for the lead. But knowing Max, he will go for a move. He will make a move in this race. It's just timing it right, and he'll be patiently waiting there for that opportunity. But if it doesn't arise in the next, say, 4 minutes or so, he will have to start making some moves here.
This is the 8th race of the season, and incredibly, we have only had 4 now different winners, because Jeremy Brutaloo won the first race. He was not previously a winner. Our other race winner, apart from Max Benecchi with 2 and Sebastian Job with 3, of course, is Graham Carroll, who won the season opener in Zandvoort. Boy, doesn't that seem like a whole different lifetime ago. Graham Carroll, I just found him on the timing screen. He's down in 25th position. So again, a weekend that could have been a whole lot better if he hadn't got fired off by Josh Rogers' mistake at the beginning of the race here.
So, yeah, it shows how things can change in the blink of an eye for these drivers, and how things can turn out. So we've seen it with Mitchell, and we've seen it with Graham as well.
Well, here are our lead trio. Plenty of racing still to be done here. And these guys, let's ride on board with Sebastian Job. Let's take his driver's view and hear what he's hearing as we race around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Great on-board lap with Sebastian Job, and you could see there just how much of a little gap he gained on Max Benecke at the end of the Heuer straight. He was almost in the mood to have a look. And watch Benecke's car. Is Benecke starting to lose the rear end? When you're in that hot, turbulent air behind the car immediately in front, it works your tyres. Sebastian Job seems to have a little bit more grip now than Max Benecke. This could be building up towards a real climactic end to the Silverstone race weekend. Alejandro Sanchez, still the race leader in the pale and dark blue from Max Benecke, number 11, orange and white. And Paul Smith, Sebastian Job in third place, looking like he's just got a little bit more.
It's this battle right here is what is really going to be turning out to be a fantastic end to this race. And I think Sebastian Job, we saw how he was having those looks into stir with Max in front of him, so he's looking a little bit racy, is Sebastian. We've also got battle further down in order in seventh place for you on the little screen in the bottom right hand corner. You've got Kevin Ellis Jr. involved, Ricardo Castrolado as well. Yes, it's just in front of those two. But it's this battle right here, and I feel that maybe Red Bull have worked on the setup to maybe have it work better in the longer race here, because Sebastian does look to be a bit more secure with himself and with his car in the later stages of this race.
Yeah, as the fuel load changes the dynamic balance of the car, you've got to sacrifice something. You either sacrifice performance early on or sacrifice performance late on. It can't work perfectly on full tanks and running on fumes at the end of the race. So somewhere they've done a pretty decent job, and so too of MSI Esports, because Alejandro Sanchez, car number 47, the race leader, not losing anything at all. So looking at Max Benecke on the right-hand side in the middle of the trio, the roof camera with Sebastian Job, the Red Bull car, ahead of him Max Benecke, and ahead of Benecke that bottom screen on the left of the trio, that is our race leader Alejandro Sanchez. Now, we've seen Sebastian Job have several looks and one really good, proper attack on Max Benecke. Benecke has not been able to challenge Sanchez since the first corner. He sort of almost got his nose inside in Abbey on the beginning of lap 1. We're now a dozen laps in, lap 13 of the race, and he's not so much as got a wheel alongside. Has he got the car to win this? I don't think he has. I think Sanchez has got him covered.
At the moment, with the way that Sebastian Job is all over Max as well, Max is more worried, I think, about Sebastian behind than trying to attack Alejandro in front. And if you're Alejandro Sanchez, you've got to keep... This is the thing, you've got to be in that groove, and you've got to keep absolutely on the limit here. As soon as you maybe sort of relax and think, right, they're not going to be, they're not going to be concentrating on me, that's when you're making mistakes. So the MSI Esports driver Alejandro Sanchez really does need to keep his focus here and keep pushing to the end. But Sebastian Job, Max Benecke, those two, they're looking like the most likely of the three to have a battle.
Yeah, definitely. Benecke closing a little down the Heuer straight, but Job closing up behind him as well. And looking back from Benecke's driver's side or passenger side, the right-hand side of the car in that mirror, didn't see any lunge coming from Sebastian Job. I think Job now, he'll be aware that this is the penultimate lap, and so if he makes a rash lunge, then he's just giving points away. Right now, he must capitalise on that mistake by Josh Rogers on the opening lap. He must score as many points as humanly possible. Third is better than nothing. Second is better than third. But if it doesn't present itself on a plate in the last 6 or 7 miles of this race, don't force it. Just take the points and be glad of them. You won't outscore Benecke in this one, but you will outscore Benecke. Josh Rogers down now in 18th place. So this is going to be a big points deficit. Okay, he was the points leader by 6 over Sebastian Job, so it'll drop him down the top half dozen, but he'll still be ahead of the likes of Sindre Setsaus, Brian Lockwood, Jeff Gyasi. So it's not irretrievable. He's done really well to recover, and he absolutely has to just keep pushing the same way that Alejandro Sanchez does.
Look at how close Beneke has got to Sanchez now. Has he just turned it up to 11 and really going for it now? Beneke is on a charge here, and he is all over the back of Alejandro. So we're heading towards the final lap of the race here, and all of a sudden Max Beneke has come alive.
Yeah, it's going to be just a few seconds remaining on the clock when they get to the start-finish line, I think. I don't think it's going to take them 2 minutes to get there, but you're right. Is he going to make the pass on Sanchez down into Stowe this time? It's very close. He pulls out, not close enough. And again, I go back to what I said earlier. If he gets it wrong, he gives points again to Sebastian Job, because Job will be in the open window like a rat up a drain pipe, if I'm not mixing my metaphors. So, a minute and 16 to go as they come out of Club Corner, sweeping round this triple apex right-hander, and across the start-finish line with a minute or so on the clock. It is the final lap, battle for sixth. Jeff Gyasi with the Brazilian colours on the back of the car and the white nose. Kevin Ellis Jr., the blue and white, well, several blues and white of Scotland. He is in 7th place. Ricardo Castro-Ledo, red and white, he's in 8th. And Dane Warren, that turquoise and black, is in 9th. That's the bottom part of your picture. And up top, final lap of this 4th race weekend for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. Down the Wellington Strait for the last time. You've got to really have an advantage to push it into Brooklands, and neither Beneke nor Job, 2nd and 3rd, do. So Sanchez breathes again. If this was the old Grand Prix circuit, he'd be able to see the checkered flag now, but it isn't, and he's only halfway round. There is one more chance for Max Beneke and Sebastian Job, maybe two, Stowe and the Vale. Okay, if you're watching in Spain, fingers crossed for the last half lap for Alejandro Sanchez. He creeps away a fraction out of Cops, but they've been catching him in the Beckett's S's.
Yeah, this is Beneke. He's got to get the run through the last part of Beckett through Chapel to get the run all the way down the Hanger Straight. This is his opportunity, and Sanchez just seems to get the better run out of Beckett through Chapel. That might just be the advantage he needs.
Now, what about Sebastian Job? Where is he? We're on board. He's not close enough, is he? He didn't get a good run there through the Beckett's S's. Not enough to have a lunge here, but what about the Vale? Is Beneke going to try something and risk it all? It's very early in the season. It's only the 4th of 10 race weekends. He's not going to risk it. It is going to be our 5th different winner of the season. 2 new winners here at Silverstone. The main race, the feature race, goes for the first time in his career to Alejandro Sanchez. He wins from Max Beneke and Sebastian Job. A big day for Alejandro Sanchez, a big day for Max Beneke as he moves up to 11,000 points, we reckon, and a big day for Sebastian Job because the British driver will go away from Silverstone as the points leader. So all three really with something big to celebrate. Somebody needs to do the maths before we get off air to figure out if it is an 11,000 point mark that Max Beneke has achieved, but we reckoned that podium finish, or possibly 2, would do it for him, and he has had 2 podium finishes here. But what it also does for Max Beneke is put him right back in the championship frame. 2 podium finishes, just what he needed, and there you go, confirmation. Max Beneke, the first iRacing driver to hit the 11,000 I rating. He is setting brand new records.
Well, Max Beneke, 11,000 I rating. I remember we talked about this last week as to what we're going to call him, because it can't be 10k Max Beneke anymore. 11k Max Beneke seems to be a bit more difficult to roll off the tongue. Maybe Beneke 11k might be the new nickname.
Well, that anyway, could be a hashtag. That's going to be hard to work into commentary, Will. Mighty Max, I think, is probably where you're going with that.
Yeah, but it is an historic moment in the history of iRacing. The first ever driver to hit 11,000 I rating. And I mean, Martin, you've talked over the years about so many accomplishments in the world of motorsports, far and wide, as the results are up on screen right now. But in terms of iRacing, I mean, this is a one in a always a million moment. There's no driver who's ever got to 11,000 I rating, not just on road racing, oval and dirt as well.
Yeah, that's it's hugely impressive and really just shows how strong he is in this. Alejandro Sanchez with that first win. Max Benecchi tops 11,000 and Sebastian Job leads the points. And Jeremy Brutaloo, our sprint race winner, finishing fourth ahead of Patrick Holtzman and Jeff Giassi. We need to look a little further. In fact, we need to look quite a long way further down the order, though, to find Josh Rogers. There he is, 17th place. Now, don't forget, when he rejoined, he was 24th or so he has fought his way well back up the order. Losing ground, Dane Warren a little, so just set source as well. Brian Lockwood losing ground here as well. So it hasn't been a great race weekend for them. Graham Carroll, what might have been if he hadn't got fired off by Josh Rogers, could have turned his championship challenge around this weekend, but unfortunately the Scot losing out there as well, so he won't be particularly happy with that. We had 3 cars not make it all the way through, didn't we? Right at the on the opening lap, Tommy Usgaard, Johan Hart and Matti Kalisoja were the 3 cars that retired on lap 1. So 2 new winners. Well, who figured that was going to happen at Silverstone?
Yeah, incredible. I was looking, by the way, at that incident with Josh Rogers earlier on, which I think is one of those key moments of the race. I'm going to bring Connery Maddock back in here as well. I was looking at that, and it just looked to be, in all of that, you know, Red Bull racing versus some of the Commander drivers and everyone else on track, Josh was looking for a gap, try and go around the inside into Chapel, and he just went wide in doing so, couldn't find any grip, couldn't find a gap, and then it was from there, well, basically, the championship's a little bit more open now.
Yep, it really is. And this was a result that Joshua Rogers really did not need, especially with a championship as tight as it is at the moment. You know, Sebastian Job is definitely in it. Benecchi with this result also still very much within it. Even Sanchez as the race winner here in the feature, he is still in with a championship hunt. We are still sort of early stages in this championship, but this might be a race that Joshua Rogers looks back at the end of the season if he doesn't take the title and say, that's where I lost it.
Yeah, and it always can come down to the smallest of moments as we are getting ready to talk to the drivers that finish on the podium. But for MSI Esports, Connery, it has been a long, hard journey for them over the years. And for Alejandro Sanchez, I mean, we always talk about the moments that we remember as drivers, as fans. For MSI Esports, this is going to be right at the very top of their accomplishments. But also because of the fact that they held off Benecchi for so long.
Yeah, that's the important point. I mean, we saw flashes of brilliance from Sanchez earlier on in the season, and of course, there were a couple of races actually last season where Sanchez really put up a massive performance. And I gotta say, Will, Sanchez is not only his first race win here, it's the first race win for a Spanish driver in the Road World Championship racing.
That's incredible.
That's a long time coming, I have to say, because Spanish sim racing is one of the strongest regions as far as just the depth of talent that nation has. And for them to finally get themselves a race win at the top level of competition in iRacing, that's a massive thing for them.
Yep. So we've got Alejandro Sanchez here right now. And Alejandro, congratulations. As Connor was just saying, you're the first Spanish driver ever to win a world championship race on a road course. And also it's MSI's first feature race victory in terms of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. But at this point, I'm assuming the $1,000 prize money is just secondary right now for you.
Yeah, I mean, it feels awesome to finally get a win after so much time in this championship and with such a high level field. But yeah, I didn't even remember the prize money until now.
Connery just had a question that I think actually is really pertinent. You came second and third at Donington. You're the winner at Silverstone. Are British tracks your new favourite tracks to drive at?
I've always liked Silverstone, not so much Donington. It came more of a surprise that double podium there, but yeah, I've always been quick at Silverstone, and we've done a great job with the car. The car was pretty quick, so yeah, it was decent.
Well, I know the temperature in Madrid right now is about 35 degrees Celsius, and it must have been a lot warmer in the seat of your racing rig, holding off two drivers who have been absolutely fantastic this season, Max Maneke and Sebastian Job. What was your tools to success here today? How did you defend from those two?
I just focus on keeping the tires in check and just not making mistakes, and basically just that, keeping it on the track basically, and being fast in the right zones. Yeah, keeping Max in check always, but yeah, it was close.
Now you got the feature victory. What's next for you as we think about getting towards the second half of the championship?
I'm happy. It was one of my objectives coming into the season, winning a race. But yeah, I want to stay in the top 5 in the championship standings and keep on doing a great job this season.
Well, thank you very much. That was Alejandro Sanchez from Madrid in Spain. And Connery, I was just thinking about what the temperature was like in Spain. He's done a fantastic job here today. And actually, I think you're completely right about that Spanish sim racing community, the Iberian sim racing community. A former World Championship commentator said that they are one of, if not the most passionate groups of people on iRacing, and the love that I'm already seeing across social media for this victory is exceptional.
Yeah, you saw it in the Twitch chat, especially coming towards the end of the race. A lot of people rooting for Sanchez to be able to hold off Beneke, same in the YouTube chat as well. And of course, we're streaming live on Facebook. And I guess it's the same there. I don't have the stream up to actually have a look at it, but it seems like a very popular race winner here today, Will, and the Spanish community is really, really going to be, celebrating this one, of course, as they tend to do. And Sanchez, he just has to try and carry on this momentum now throughout the rest of the season, because this could be the start of something. This could be, like I said, the start of his championship hunt. And we wouldn't have expected Alejandro to be in the running for the championship if we were discussing this at the start of the season.
He did have good points finishes last season, remember, so he has got consistency. We talk about consistency. Next, we're going to talk about excellence. We talk to a driver who, for the first time in the history of iRacing, has got 11,000 iRating. Congratulations on that, Max. Before we talk about the race, let's talk about hitting that high watermark.
And still hitting that 11K mark. It's really great. It was a good race. Tried to fight as much as I could to keep P2. Worked out in the end. So very happy. Obviously now, I don't know. Like I never even thought about it. Since I hit the 10K, for me it was like done. And then from there onwards, it was just going up and up. And I don't even know when it was. I think it was 2018 or so. So 2 years ago. Yeah, that's the time you need for 1,000 more iRating. It's insane.
Well, let's talk about this race briefly. You were in battles all day long, but I want to talk about those last 15 minutes, putting the pressure onto Alejandro Sanchez, but not quite finding a way through. How hard was that competition here today? And how hard were you batting for the victory over getting yourself a solid points haul?
Yeah, Silverstone is quite tricky. You've got this one long straight where you potentially could overtake, but you need the guy ahead to make a mistake. I mean, you see, we have the SS here. You have a lot of dirty air in that car, so it's just hard to stick with the guy in front. And then, the chances are just quite small. So you just need to wait. Sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't. And Alejandro did a very good job there, not making a single mistake. He was sliding 1 or 2 times, but it was the same for me and Sebi. Who also tried to overtake me, but in the end, it just doesn't work out that easily. I obviously am always fighting for the win, but once you realize that it's quite hard, you just wait. So that's what I did for 25 minutes. So I was waiting to see if he makes a mistake, but he didn't. So deserved win there, but very happy about P2. It's important for the championship, and much more important than a single win.
Well, thank you very much there. Max Benecke coming home second place in the Porsche 24 car. And again, Connor, I will say, knowing Benecke, on one hand, very cool, very calm, very collected, talking about 11K iRacing. On the other hand, I am going to say that 11K does mean something to him. And I know how much it means to him.
Yeah, it's a massive, massive achievement. All things considered, to be that consistent on the top level for so long as well. He's been involved in things for a couple of years now, and has always been up near the front, unless he has an incident or that gets him sent towards the back. But it's been a long time coming, but it just to get over that line now, I think he's going to be very happy. Maybe next target 12K. Well,
who knows? Next off, we go to third place. And Sebastian's giving me a bit of feedback there. So I'm going to have to do like this. But Sebastian Job coming home third place in that Red Bull Racing Esports car. And according to my maths, makes it very close, if not potentially in the championship lead heading out of Silverstone. So Sebastian, it was a racer storyline to the two drivers ahead of you. For you, the storyline was, of course, getting yourself as many points as possible. How satisfied are you with third place here in the feature?
Hey, Will. Yeah, quite happy with that. It was a bit of a different approach to previous rounds where I really went for it in qualifying, and then kind of tried to make a place in the race. It went pretty well. Obviously, it's not as good as a win, but I was happy with the pace. I think that there's something to learn from the second race. So I struggled a lot with the tyre wear. I think I went a bit too aggressive in the early laps, and so had no real chance to get past. But it was a good fun 2 races. I really enjoyed it. First race was ridiculously intense because I had Josh all over me for the whole time. But the second one was a bit more chilled out. I had no one behind me, so I could just kind of wait and see how things went ahead. Fingers crossed they make a mistake, but it didn't happen. So third place it is, and I can't complain too much with that.
We talk about challenging, frustrating, annoying, almost comical at times in terms of the way that having to defend against drivers in a series can be. Next time out, we go to Road Atlanta, which are all of those races that I said and many more, which I'm not allowed to say in a broadcast. But when you head to Road Atlanta in a couple of weeks' time, what is going to be your game plan? Because we saw the Red Bull Racing Esports drivers working closely together in that mid-pack and the sprint race. Is that a recipe for success, or do you need to do something differently in 2 weeks?
Obviously, I don't want to give away too much, but I really don't know. Like, for me, the strategy today, as for whether or not I would go for it in qualifying, I decided during the qualifying session. It's all very much on the fly. Like, normally for these races, I prefer to plan ahead a bit, but didn't happen this time. And I just kind of went with it. I feel like it'll probably be similar for the next coming races. It's just all about getting the points down. I don't think I'll be taking huge risks or something, but hopefully we can get a solid result again.
Big sense of maturity there from Sebastian Job from England, coming home in third place here today. That is your podium, and with that, it's time to get some final thoughts and think about what's going to happen in a couple of weeks' time, because you know what, Paul? I was saying elsewhere, this race compared to last year was actually very calm and collected, a bit like driving down the M25 on a Sunday morning. The only time ever it seems to be a little bit quieter.
Yeah, certainly. That's a very British reference, very Southern reference as well for our audience, our international audience. But yeah, it was a calm race compared to last year. But I think with this being the second year that they've driven around this track in this series, they all know how it goes. They've all had pretty much a baseline setup for this car, and therefore able to just tweak and change things as and where they need to for this round. So it was great racing, though, real respectful racing on the whole as well. A couple of big incidents, including the one involving Josh Rogers. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I can't wait for Road Atlanta. It's one of my favourite tracks to commentate.
It is a great racetrack, and Martin, I'm sure that you've had some great experiences over there. But before that, talking about the point standings very quickly, the back of the pack of cards map, shall we say, Job 219, Max Benecke 201, Alejandro Sanchez with a victory up to 198, Josh Rogers down to 4th place in the championship.
Well, he's lucky that Tommy Osgaard didn't score strongly, because he doesn't drop too far down. And 194 to 219. Okay, it's a 25-point margin, but you know, that's eminently achievable. Don't forget, this is the 4th scoring race weekend of 10. So that could turn around completely on its head in Road Atlanta. Alejandro Sanchez, though, I mean, it's been a mighty season so far. 3rd in the Tag Heuer Porsche Esports Supercup. Are you kidding me? And with his first win, yeah, what a way to go away from Silverstone. 2 podium finishes in Donington. First ever win in Silverstone. There'll be no stopping him when we get to Brands Hatch. He's clearly, you know, a British driver.
British driver in disguise for Alejandro Sanchez right now. And Connery, we might actually get the first of our season championships out of the way by the time we finish our broadcast at Road Atlanta in a couple of weeks' time. And that will be for the most pole positions, because Josh Rogers has got 4 pole positions. Getting 1 more, he will be guaranteed the pole position prize for the season, and with that, winning a Tag Heuer Connected watch in the process.
Yeah, so keep an eye on that coming into the next race day, I suppose. Like I said at the top of the show, though, Josh has always been super strong in qualifying. His 1-lap pace is absolutely exemplary. I don't think there's really anyone else up and down the grid that could really challenge him in qualifying. So I think that prize is gonna come sooner rather than later, I think.
Yeah, but heading into Road Atlanta in a couple of weeks' time, it's a track that I've actually had the privilege not only to actually be at, I've been able to drive a golf buggy around the track as well. That's another story for another time, but it is one of my favourite tracks. For endurance racing, it's got a very clear narrative about the way that you've got to appreciate and deal with the race. And I always say every lap is its own lap. For a sprint race and for a 30-minute feature race, you can't have that mindset. It's all about trying to find any avenue to break what is going to be, at some point, a very long draft train.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw a draft train at points over the course of the 2 races that we've had here at Silverstone. I think that's going to be even more exacerbated when we head to the next round at Road Atlanta. Of course, that very long back straight, you know, is split into 2 parts by those 2 corners in the middle of the lap. Of course, you've got the down the hill run into the final chicane of Turn 10A, Turn 10B, Turn 10C, or whatever the Americans decide to name their corners these days. But yeah, that's going to be a massive opportunity there for drivers to get past. But, you know, we'll talk more about that in a couple of weeks' time, I suppose.
Indeed, sir. And with that, it is time to wrap up our coverage of round number 4 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. With that, I want to say thank you to the people behind the scenes: Drew Adamson, Siska Scaramuza, Evan Pasoko, Doug, Jay, Justin, and more. Of course, to our commentators, Paul Smith, Martin Haven, and Connery Maddock. My name is Will Vincent, and after what has been a fantastic day's worth of racing, we have a new winner in terms of the iRacing World Championship Series, claiming his first ever feature race. Alejandro Sanchez goes to 3rd place in the championship by taking himself a double victory here today. Sebastian Job is your new points leader, and Max Benecke is the first driver in iRacing history to reach 11,000 iRating. That is a set of headlines for you, and that is all we got time for. Thank you so much for watching across Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. We'll see you in Road Atlanta in 2 weeks' time. Goodbye from Silverstone.